I'm Eric Wolfsberg, Senior Director of Product Management at DZS. I oversee DZS initiatives for connected premises, as well as our ONT and CPE product lines. I'm here today with Michael Cady. Mike is our Vice President of Sales Engineering. He has a long history and experience with DZS. He has helped with the service aspects of our products, our solutions during his time in sales engineering, and with a real focus on the customer and service provider experience. DZS is in a unique position to help RDOF bidders and award winners with their service build-outs. We offer solutions for fiber to the home, both GPON and point-to-point Ethernet, fiber to the curb, mobile backhaul, and mobile front haul, as well as next generation 10 gig PON and 10 gigabit point-to-point. Through our network of partners and sales channels, we offer services and equipment required to build, deploy high-speed, hyper-connected broadband networks. Now, there are a number of challenges deploying infrastructure within rural areas. The uncertainty, the potential cost of material to build out and maintain the network. So what we wanted to do today was really discuss what DZS has to offer in terms of troubleshooting and addressing operational costs. More specifically, what tools do our field technicians have, network operations centers engineers, so they know that when the equipment is installed inside or outside the home, all services are active. And for those field technicians, before they need to actually drive out to a customer site, they know what the customer is experiencing. So it's not about the cloud. It's not about hoping that some analytic engine can pinpoint an issue. It's about avoiding the need to call the central office or the network operations center for troubleshooting. It's about a practical toolbox of ONT features, both for those running at layer 2, a demarcation to the house, and those that are advanced residential gateways with wireless. DZS offers a number of tools that empower the technicians to really proactively monitor, test, and restore services independent of the need to access the primary management system or any cloud-based service. So to help us walk through some of these features available on DZS ONTs and really how it relates to RDOF, I invited Mike to talk through and demonstrate the value-added capabilities that make DZS products unique. Again, Mike has a perspective of our service providers. He's seen the value of these tools, how they're used for troubleshooting. We all know time is money, and with RDOF, the cost and expensive of driving to a customer site is significant. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike to walk us through the demonstration.
All right, well, thank you, Eric. Let me go ahead and get my screen share started. So what I wanted to do here today is basically talk through a scenario or two, and essentially if a customer has an issue or if there's any kind of a trouble that you want to investigate, you can easily log into the element management system and then be able to connect to the customer's home and get into their ONT. So for instance, if we have a customer named Smith, you could search by any name or any however you have it set up. But customer Smith has called in, they have a trouble. We find their ONT within the OLT, and then we can go in here on the OLT side and look up information about statistics and everything, which is pretty common. But we also want to be able to see what's happening inside the customer's home. So what I just did there was I just utilized our internal private network that connects between the OLT and the ONT. And then this launches our web client inside the ONT. So what the screen I'm looking at is actually at the customer's home. So you can tell here we've got multiple different tabs that can show us a lot of different information. Starting with, very simply put, you can get their account information, how long the ONT has been up. You can look at the MAC addresses and software versions and look for alarms and such. But you can also dig in a little bit deeper from a GPON layer and from an Ethernet layer. You can see all the statistics. You get into the GPON level, you can look here and see if you're taking any errors or any BIP errors or CRC error messages that would indicate a physical layer problem. So you might realize that you really don't have to go to the customer home. Maybe you need to go to the splitter cabinet and clean a fiber, for instance. And you can also get information on the send and receive on the GEM ports and determine how the GPON is actually performing. But you can also go further. You can get in and look at the GPON layer and information and look at the link status, see if the unit's been bouncing, see if you have any power level issues or temperature issues or any physical alarms at the GPON layer. But even beyond that, you you can see in our status tab here, we have a lot of different choices. You can look at, the ARP table, you can look at firewall settings, you can get in here and look at the bridge table so you can see what devices are plugged in at the home. And if you're utilizing the device for a NATed instance for DHCP, you could even look at the DHCP table, find out how long what the IP address is, what the name of the devices are, what's been connected, when it's going to renew the address, and so on. If you happen to be doing IP video, you can even see an IGMP group membership table, which is very helpful to see what streams are being pulled and what MAC address or which set-top box is actually pulling those streams. And then from a troubleshooting standpoint, you can utilize that same information and go back and maybe check your bridge or your interface table or your bridge table and see where these MAC addresses are connected. Especially with moving to indoor ONTs, it has been common where people have moved things around and unplugged and plugged and perhaps plugged a set-top box into the wrong port. So you can quickly check it here and just advise them to plug it into the correct port. Even going further, other settings as well. If you're using the ONT for wireless, there are wireless information as well. You get into voice settings. Voice is something that for RDOF is obviously a very large part of the RDOF requirements, and troubleshooting voice can be an issue, especially if you're using a hosted voice application and you don't have access to the soft switch locally. So with our tools, you can actually get in here, Eric, and you can look at the different lines. You can look at the status. Very simply, with this particular one here, we just show that the registration is up and that we have, there's no call active at the time. But you can go through and also look at statistics and see if there's errors or jitter, any latency. One thing that's important with RDOF is the MOS score. And right here on the ONT, you'll be able to see what the MOS quality score is. And really, one thing that is also an advantage that we have is you can go in and look at the logs. And in logs here, we have an audit log, which basically would show you any active calls, caller ID, call history, when the call came in, how the duration of the call, very helpful information. But we also have packet logs. This is unique, and with this, you can actually, it's basically a SIP trace. So for instance, you can look here and see that the information that is being sent to the switch and from the ONT, and you can see the IP address it's sent to and what information it used, and then you can also see what's coming back. So 200 OK is wonderful. That tells you that you're registered and everything is working. But maybe you have a 401 unauthorized or some other code that you would have to be able to troubleshoot. So by looking at this packet capture, you can quickly determine if things are working properly, or if there is a problem, you can see what the problem is. And even if you don't understand all the codes, a quick Google search or quick search on the internet, you can determine what those different codes mean. A lot of times it could be a simple password problem or some kind of a routing issue. But if you come into this and you see that you're sending information to the switch, but you're not getting anything back, you can always go to our test screen. And on our test screen, you can, among other things, you can do a ping or a trace route and determine, are you reaching the soft switch properly, or did something happen in the route on the way there? But back to the voice testing. The other factor inside the log is a running log, so it continues and it'll stay in there, so you can see if there's any issues and what the duration of those issues have been. One other thing that we offer that is very unique back on our test screen is under voice, we have the ability to actually do a voice test call. And this is something that is very, very helpful. And I always like to tell a story when I get to talk about this. A couple of years ago, I was working with a customer, and they were new to deploying our product, and I was helping them out and just do a little training. And it just happened to be he got a call from his NOC center saying that they had a very upset customer on the line, and asked if he could talk to him. So he put her on speakerphone, and the lady on the line was very upset because ever since they installed their ONT, she thought they were having voice problems, and she was very upset and wanted it replaced. So he started talking to her and was clicking through the screens and doing a lot of what I just showed you, and everything looked right. Everything looked like it was all registered and it was going to be fine, but something obviously was wrong. So he was ready to dispatch a truck. His next move was to do a truck roll, was to go out there and investigate. But I reminded him that we had this test screen. So we asked her to hold on a second. I helped him. We went here. He took the phone off hook and he went through and he dialed her phone number. Actually, we dialed her cell phone number that we saw on the caller ID. So this lady went from being very upset and very irate to all of a sudden she said, "Hold on, I've got another call." And you could hear her basically pull the phone away, and then she says, "My house is calling me. Why is my house calling me?" And I started talking, and I just said, "Ma'am, we just used the test tools inside the ONT inside your home. We called your cell phone through the network, and we've basically proven that everything is working." And I just said, "Has anything changed at your house?" And while she was very upset and pretty irate, all of a sudden her whole attitude changed, and she said, "Sorry, my husband cleaned the carpets on Sunday. We'll call you back." And she hung up. We never heard from her again. So basically, obviously her husband had bumped something or unplugged something, and they quickly fixed it themselves. But my customer turned to me and said, "I'm buying lunch because you just saved us a truck roll." So it's just one example of how the tools here were able to prove that everything was working properly and it wasn't necessary to dispatch a truck. So with this test call feature, we're able to actually place a call, and then on the other end, you could actually go through and answer, and then you could mess around with some DTMF. You can push some digits and you could hear it, make sure it's properly working. While the call, right now, the call stays disconnecting because I haven't picked up on the other side. But basically, while the call is active, you can go through and also look at the status, and you can see the MOS score, for instance, if it was recording, and the call, if it completed and everything as well. So it's a very good tool that you can use to really help reduce your truck rolls. And the other thing that a lot of customers really appreciate, Eric, is let's say you ultimately do have to dispatch somebody. At least you are sending them in armed with a lot of information, and when they get there, they're able to respond quickly and fix the problem, keep the customer happy, and move on to the next call. The other aspect too is you probably have an SLA with your customers stating that if there is going to be a truck roll and the problem is in the home, that you're going to charge them so much for the service call. With these tools, it really allows you to set that precedent and put it in front of the customer before you are on site. So again, it's just a lot of different tools, and we could talk for hours on all the things that we're able to do here. But it really is helpful to be able to minimize the truck rolls and again, share the information with dispatch. If a truck is sent, you can share a lot of information with them ahead of time. And all of this is just included in the ONTs. And again, connecting from the OLT to the ONT was done through a private network. It doesn't require any additional IP addresses. It's all secure, and there's no way to get in remotely. So it's a very helpful tool that a lot of customers have benefited from. So.
Well, very good, Mike. I really appreciate you showing these tools. It's been very
Absolutely.
helpful. And I just want to say thank you for your time today. So,
thank you.
So with this wraps up this session. Again, I want to thank Mike for joining, walking through these unique ONT capabilities. Please be sure to watch other DZS webinars and RDOF, as well as follow the DZS RDOF Amplify blog. So with that, I want to thank you.
Thank you.